Japan keeps the best records on Earth. It writes down what it builds, what it burns, and who it loses. Files nobody has ever closed. Bodies that still have no names. Evidence nobody has ever matched. And when a country writes that much down, that carefully, for that long, what is missing starts to mean something. Not the tidy ones with an ending. I mean the ones that are still open, where the file is complete and the answer is not in it. It gets worse the further down we go, and there is one near the bottom where they have everything except a name. I had to stop reading and come back to it. Let's begin. In the winter of 1978, somewhere in Gifu Prefecture, a woman stopped a child on the way home and asked a question. She's wearing a white surgical mask. In Japan, that is not sinister. People wear them for a cold, for hay fever, for the pollen, and half the street has one on. She asks whether she's pretty. If the child says yes, she takes the mask down. The mouth is cut open from one ear to the other. And then she asks the second question. Even like this, there is no right answer. Say no, and she kills you. Say yes, and she makes you match. There were escapes, and every schoolyard had its own. If she asks and you cannot answer, tell her she's so-so, and she stops to think about it, and you run. If she comes closer, throw her a hard toffee because she likes them, and if she's still coming, you say the word pomade 3 times, or 6 depending on which school you went to, because for reasons nobody has ever established, the smell of hair pomade repels her. Here's what that did to the country. The earliest press report anybody can definitely date is the 26th of January, 1979, on the front page of the Gifu Nichinichi Shimbun, in a column by an editor called Murase Mutsumi. The National Diet Library still holds it on microfilm. He notes in passing that she's said to look like the actress Yamamoto Yoko. By March, she's in the national weeklies. By the 5th of July, the Mainichi children's paper reports that she has covered the entire country in about 6 months, from Aomori in the far north to Kagoshima in the far south. And the adults respond. Teachers and parents organize group departures from school so that no child walks home alone. Parents' associations place patrols on the streets. This is a rumor among primary school children, and it moves the institutions of a functioning country for most of a year. The folklorist Ikura Yoshiyuki has the best account of why it travelled so fast. Cram schools. Japanese children were being gathered in the evenings out of several different school districts into one room, and then sent home in the dark, and the story crossed catchment boundaries it had previously been unable to cross. So, how many people did she actually injure? At 3 in the morning on the 21st of June, 1979, in a shopping street in Himeji, police stopped a 25-year-old woman. She had painted her face white and run red lipstick out to her ears. She was carrying a heavy kitchen cleaver removed from her own drawer. She had been to a horror film that evening, and she had previously distributed samples for a cosmetics company, which is where the makeup came from. She was not hunting children. She was with a friend, and the two of them intended to frighten a man they both knew who operated a pancake shop. It had closed early because it was raining. She was released with a warning. A month later, she was referred to prosecutors, not for anything she had done, but for carrying the knife, and the reporting was explicit that this was to discourage anybody else from trying it. That is the entire casualty list. 8 months, 115 million people, and one summons for a prank that never happened because of the weather, which is not the version you will find. In 2007, somebody inserted a sentence into the English language encyclopedia entry claiming that a coroner had turned up records from the 70s of a woman who chased children and was hit by a car and died. It carried no source, The section it sat in was flagged as having no sources. It has since been deleted from the article, and it is still on every horror site on the internet. So the first thing in this video is not really a woman with a cut mouth. It is a rumour with nothing at the centre of it that moved a country for most of a year. And then, 28 years later, somebody went back and quietly supplied it with a body. That one had a whole country reacting to a source nobody could find. The next has 12 documents and no event. In the spring of 1803, on the Pacific coast northeast of Tokyo, fishermen rowed out to something circular in the water and towed it in. It resembled, the oldest account says, a lidded incense box, over 18 feet across. The upper half was glass sealed with pine resin, the lower half plated in iron, and through it they could see characters nobody recognised. There was a woman inside, about 4'11", red hair going white at the ends, holding a box of plain white wood, 2 feet square, that she would not permit anybody to approach. An elder of the village offered an explanation. A foreign king's daughter banished for marrying against her father, her lover executed, and his head inside the box. Then the village made a decision. Reporting a foreign landing meant an investigation they would be paying for. So they returned her to the vessel, towed it offshore, and pushed it away. Here's the record it comes from. The best known version sits in a collection called Toen Shosetsu, compiled in 1825 by Kyokute Bakin, at that point the most celebrated novelist in Japan. It is not a domain report. It is the minutes of a club, which Bakin established the same year. 12 members meeting monthly, each contributing a strange story he had heard. About 300 were recorded, everyone tagged with the member who introduced it, and the hollow boat is tagged to Bakin's son. 22 years after the date it gives. I had to read that twice. The surviving copies contradict each other as well. One places the landing in the 2nd month, one in the 3rd, one in the 8th. In 1825, the craft resembles an incense box, and by 1844, it has acquired the black rim around the middle that makes it look, to modern eyes, like a flying saucer. In 2000, a professor at Gifu University, Tanaka Kazuo, checked that beach name against the land records of the shogunate and the standard dictionary of Japanese place names. No such beach existed, and here's the part that reversed it. In 2014, a document surfaced from the family archive of the Ban, a ninja line from Iga dated 4 days after the landing. It gives the location as Hinachihara Sharihama. The character read Yadaru means to lodge, which returns you to Harayadori, and Sharihama is real. It sits in Kamisu City in Ibaraki. It is on the survey maps of Ino Tadataka, the man who first measured the coast of Japan, and you can go and stand on it. It is a surf break now, behind seawalls and wind turbines, and a couple of miles inland, a temple preserves a legend about an Indian princess set adrift in a hollow mulberry boat, who came ashore there and became the goddess of silkworms. There is a version of this where a spacecraft landed in Japan in 1803, and a version where a novelist's son needed something to bring to a meeting. Usually the truth sits somewhere between the two. This time it sits in both. The beach was real. So was the legend, and it was older. What 1803 contributed was a date. So far the paperwork has been the problem. Here it starts working. On the afternoon of the 24th of July 1989, a Hokkaido police helicopter searching for 2 lost hikers passed over a bog. Below it, assembled from stacked timber 3 tiers deep, were 3 enormous letters, SOS. That ground is wetland at about 4,300 feet, 2.5 miles south of the summit of Mount Asahi, the highest peak in Hokkaido, in bamboo grass deep enough to walk into and never come out of. The following day, they began recovering bone, scattered north of the letters and carrying animal tooth marks. A skull on the 28th, 30 further fragments on the 3rd of August, and a grey rucksack containing 4 cassette tapes, a portable player, a traffic safety charm from a shrine, and a plastic bag printed with the head office address of a sushi chain in Osaka. They played the recordings. Two of them were cartoon theme tunes taped off the radio in the early 80s. One case still had the artwork on it, a magical girl show called Minky Momo. And on one tape there were 2 minutes and 17 seconds of a young man's voice, delivering it one syllable at a time. SOS, help me. Stuck on the cliff, I cannot move. SOS, help me. It is where I first met the helicopter. The bamboo is deep. I cannot get up. Winch me up from here. You can hear him breathing. Here's what the record says next, and it is not what the internet says. It was not what I expected either. A driving license was recovered from a hollow in a tree stump, along with a hanko, the carved personal seal that a Japanese adult uses in place of a signature. Both belonged to a 25-year-old office worker from Konan in Aichi who had disappeared in July 1984, walking the ridge from Mount Kuro across to Mount Asahi. 5 years earlier, his family identified the belongings, down to the cassette case. Then Asahikawa Medical University examined the bones and reported a woman, 25 to 35 years old, about 5'3", 2 fillings, blood type A. Dead between 1 and 3 years. He was blood type O, and he had been missing 5. So for 18 months Japan possessed a genuine mystery. A man's possessions with no man, and a woman's bones with no woman. Then in February 1991, Asahikawa Higashi police announced that the examination had been mistaken, and that dental comparison assigned every fragment to the man from Aichi. One body, one person, him. Here's what does not dissolve. The Forestry Agency, the government body that manages Japan's forests, photographs that terrain from the air every 5 years, so the national maps can be redrawn. On the 20th of September 1987, from 12,000 feet, it photographed that bog, and the letters are in the picture. They measure about 1/30th of an inch across on the print, and nobody examined them for 22 months afterwards. He built it. That is the official finding, and what the record leaves unexplained is why a man strong enough to gather that much timber and stack it 3 deep did not simply walk out. English retellings invert it and tell you he was too weak, that no tool was recovered, that he is missing to this day. None of it is accurate, and the truth is worse. A man who could still work transmitted a distress signal, and it functioned perfectly. 2 years late on a routine mapping survey from 12,000 feet up. That is the last case in this video that gets an answer. Everything below this line is counted, filed and public, and none of it has ever produced a name.
Wave after wave of suspected North Korean fishing boats, some containing bodies, have been washing up on Japan's shores in recent weeks.
On a Thursday night in November 2017, 8 men walked up a boat ramp at Yurihonjo, in Akita, and requested assistance. They could walk unaided. They said they were squid fishermen whose engine had failed and that they wanted to go home. Japan concluded They were telling the truth, and on the 26th of December, they flew out of Kansai Airport for China.
The Japanese public broadcaster NHK reported on Tuesday that November was the month with the most cases of so-called ghost boats found near the Japanese coast.
4 days after they arrived ashore, on the same coastline, a wooden vessel arrived carrying 8 men. 6 were in a storage compartment near the bow below deck. 2 were near the stern. One of them was holding a 1,001 note, which is North Korean currency, and that banknote is the only reason anybody knows where the boat had come from. They are called ghost ships, and they arrive every winter along Japan's northwest coast. The Coast Guard has been counting since 2013. 104 in 2017, a record at the time.
28 such vessels were found in November, breaking the previous record of 21 cases in January 2014.
Then 220 the following financial year. If you live on that coast, you learn to read them. If the hull is black with tar, it travelled a long way. If it is furred with shellfish, it travelled a long way slowly. And if there is no engine in it, nobody was steering. And here's where it stops being a story about boats. Under a law from 1899 governing sick and dead travellers, the body belongs to whichever municipality it lands in. The municipality commissions the autopsy, arranges the cremation, and locates a priest. Then it publishes a notice in the National Government Gazette, which is the paper of record for anything the state has to announce. An estimated age, an estimated height, what the person was wearing. No name, no birthday, no relatives. It retains the ashes for 7 years, and if nobody claims them, they enter the municipal grave reserved for the dead with no connections. Akita Prefecture budgeted for 4 unclaimed dead in the 2017 financial year, roughly $6,700. It handled 23 and approved an emergency budget 5 times the size. Some do go home through the Japanese Red Cross to the Korean Red Cross. 32 sets of remains in 2016, 6 in 2019. North Korea has never publicly acknowledged a single one of them. The reason the boats come is not mysterious. In July 2020, the journal Science Advances published satellite research demonstrating that more than 900 Chinese-flagged vessels were operating inside North Korean waters in 2017, in breach of United Nations sanctions, extracting more than 180,000 tons of squid in 2 years. Industrial trawlers remove the squid, and men in wooden boats with no engine and no radio get sent further out to satisfy the quota anyway. On Sado, there is a temple called Shinrakuji, whose priest retains the unidentified dead beside the main hall, separate from the parishioners' ashes. He deliberately performs no funeral for them, because a funeral would close the file. When a journalist asks to visit the city grave they are transferred to after 7 years, he was refused permission. Sado sits off the stretch of coast where North Korean agents took Megumi Yokota. In 1977, on her way home from school, at 13 years old. Japan has never got her back, so the town will not show anybody where it buries the North Korean dead. I keep coming back to that refusal. Hold on to those ashes. At the bottom of this video, the police are going to have a man's blood, his fingerprints, his hair, and the clothing off his back, and they will not have a name either. Nobody in that one was hiding. Everything below this line is somebody who was and who got away with it. At 9:15 on the morning of the 10th of December 1968, an ordinary black car pulled out of a bank branch in Kokubunji, carrying 4 employees and 3 metal cases of cash. 6 minutes later, on a road called Gakuen Dori, running along the north wall of Fuchu prison, a man on a white police motorcycle waved them down. He announced that he was from Kogane Station with urgent word from Sugamo. The bank's Sugamo branch manager had just had his house blown up, and there might be dynamite underneath this car. 4 days earlier, the Kokubunji manager had received a letter threatening to destroy his house unless 3 million yen, about $8,000, was delivered by 5 o'clock. The story arrived at a bank already frightened. He crawled underneath, and smoke emerged from below the chassis. He shouted that there was dynamite and told them to run. They ran. He departed in their vehicle. The entire operation took under 3 minutes. No shot, no weapon, no injury. In the cases was 294,307,500 yen. Winter bonuses for 4,525 workers at the Toshiba plant up the road. The yen was pegged at 360 to the dollar that December, so call it $817,000 then, and about 7.7 million now. I'm going to give you what he abandoned and then what all of it was worth, because the second part is the actual case. 124 separate items across 4 scenes, and investigators traced everyone. The smoke flare was a high flare 5 by Nihon Carlit. 4,190 sold, mostly through petrol stations, and no purchaser was ever established. The hunting cap came from a firm in Osaka that produced 54 of them. 36 were accounted for. The remaining 18 went to a retail market in Tachikawa, where nobody could determine who had purchased them. The saliva on the extortion envelope produced blood type B. 171,346 officer days went into the investigation over 7 years, and 110,000 names entered the persons of interest register. It cost more than 3 times what had been taken. 2 officers died of exhaustion. The Metropolitan Police fingerprint section had 3 people on it. On the 21st of December, the police released a portrait of the man they wanted. Normally that is a composite, a face an artist assembles from what the witnesses describe. This was not. It was a photograph of a real living man who happened to resemble a suspect, printed without asking him. I find that harder to forgive than the robbery. Now here's where it stops being a caper. The suspect it resembled was 19. His father was a traffic officer on a white motorcycle, which is how the boy came to understand police motorcycles. Investigators were directed at him on the 12th of December. On the 15th, 2 detectives called at the family house asking where he was. He died that night, 5 days after the robbery. The record calls it suicide. The people who knew him insisted he was not the type, and the only fingerprints on the wrapping belonged to his father. He was eliminated anyway. His blood type was A against the B on the envelope, and his handwriting did not correspond. Then, after he was dead, the 4 employees were shown his photograph, and the driver put the resemblance at 95%. The criminal deadline expired on the 10th of December, 1975, and nobody has ever been charged. Only about 1/3 of 1% of the money carried recorded serial numbers. Not one of those notes has ever surfaced. The bank's insurer covered the entire loss and had reinsured it abroad, so it emerged from foreign underwriters. The bonuses were paid in full the following morning. The largest theft in Japanese history cost Japan nothing at all. It cost one 19-year-old everything, and he did not do it. That was one man against a bank. This next one is a small group against a country, and they wrote to it. On the evening of the 18th of March 1984, 2 men carrying a handgun and an air rifle came in through a kitchen door in Nishinomiya. The house belonged to the mother of the president of Izaki Glixo, and they tied her up. Then they went next door, bound his wife and his eldest daughter, and shut them in the lavatory. He was in the bath with 2 of his children. They removed him naked. Katsuhisa Izaki was 42. They demanded 1 billion yen and 220 pounds of gold, about $4.2 million. the largest ransom ever requested in Japan. 3 days later, he got himself out of a flood control shed on a riverbank in Osaka. And then it stopped being a kidnapping. In April, a letter reached Glyco with a bottle of hydrochloric acid enclosed, and somebody incinerated the company's prototype room. Then they gave themselves a name. The monster with 21 faces, which is one better than the fiend with 20 faces. The master of disguise in the detective novels every Japanese child grows up reading. On the 10th of May, 4 newspapers received a letter, hand-printed in hiragana, the simplest of the Japanese scripts, and the first one a child learns. We put cyanide soda in Glyco products, eat Glyco and go to the grave. Shops stripped the shelves nationwide, and the share price fell a quarter inside 4 months. Then, in June, this. If we make children cry, that is a problem for us too, and we forgive Izaki Glyco. So they moved on to 5 more food companies: Marudai, Morinaga, House Foods, Fujiya, Setagaya. In October, they placed poisoned Morinaga sweets in shops across 4 prefectures, and 13 packets tested positive for sodium cyanide. The labels were handwritten in the dialect people speak around Osaka: poison inside, danger, eat it and you will die. By February, they were using 2 labels: poison inside, danger, and no poison, safe. Nobody ever ate one. Nobody died. Not one person was made ill by them. I will give you what the group did, and then what the police did, because only one of those is genuinely a mystery. 6 companies, every handover under surveillance, and they never collected a yen. On the 14th of November, it was 100 million yen, about $420,000, and a relay across Kyoto into Shiga that ended at a service area on the expressway. 2 Shiga detectives independently watched the same man there in a golf cap and dark glasses. Neither approached him. They were not permitted to. The task force had committed to arresting at the moment of handover, so officers on the ground were forbidden to follow anybody and forbidden to stop and question. Requests from the field were refused by headquarters, and sections of the route the offenders had selected had no radio coverage at all. His sketch was published in January 1985. 35 to 45, 5'10", eyes that slanted upwards like a fox, one of the most reproduced images in post-war Japan, and it never delivered him. 1,301,000 officer days, 125,000 people interviewed. At the peak, 44,000 officers, 1 in 5 of the entire national police force. And here's the part I cannot stop thinking about. Yamamoto Shoji was the chief of Shiga Prefectural Police, 59 and non-career, which in Japan means he came up through the ranks rather than in at the top. His force had lost a van on the night of the 14th of November, and he took that as his own. He submitted his resignation in February 1985, and it was not accepted. On the 7th of August, he gave his farewell press conference on leaving office, and took his own life the same day, having telephoned his brother first to apologize for the shame. 5 days later, the last letter arrived. Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. It is Yoshino or Shikata who should have died, the chiefs of Hyogo and Osaka. No career. Yamamoto died like a man. So we decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. And then, the final 3 lines. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It is fun to lead a bad man's life. I've read that letter a dozen times. They were never heard from again. At midnight on the 13th of February 2000, the last of 28 charges expired, and the head of the National Police Agency said it was extremely regrettable that they could not apprehend suspects. No arrest, no charge, no suspect. They stopped because a man they had never encountered died. Nobody ever stopped them. And here's the bottom. Not a case with too little evidence. The case with more of it than any other in Japan. Just after 20 to 11, on the morning of the 31st of December 2000, a woman let herself into the house next door. From the street, the two houses read as one building, and inside they were walled solid down the middle with no way through. She lived in one of them. In the other were Miyazawa Mikio, 44, whose job was designing the logos and colours corporations are recognized by, his wife Yasuko, 41, who ran an after-school tutoring class on the other side of that wall, Nina, who was 8, and Rei, who was 6. The whole street was being cleared for the expansion of Setagaya Park. 4 houses remained occupied. The family were due to move out in March. I'm not going to describe what she found. It is documented. You can go and find it, and it will not make you understand anything you do not already understand from the fact that there were 4 of them. What I want is the next few hours. He came in through a bathroom window on the north side of the house, the one that faces the park, on the half floor between the first story and the second, 12 inches by 16, 11 feet above the ground, and unlocked. He reached it over the fence and up onto the air conditioner housing. He cut his own hand in the process, so he searched through the family's first aid box. He left sticking plasters with his fingerprints on them and blood-stained towels, and he used sanitary towels out of the bathroom, trying to stop the bleeding. Then he went to the refrigerator. Barley tea, a melon, ham. 4 ice creams, and he squeezed the tubs in his fist and forced the contents out. He used the lavatory and did not flush it. He lay down on the sofa in the upstairs living room and slept there. And he used their computer twice for about 5 minutes each time. Once at 18 minutes past 1 in the morning, once at 5 past 10. For years, investigators believed he had stayed until daylight. A review in 2014 concluded he most probably left in the dark. Here's what he left, and here's why this is the bottom of the video. All of it is published on the Metropolitan Police's own website. You can go and read it this afternoon. A black Uniqlo jacket, size large. 82,000 sold nationwide. 10,194 in Tokyo. A grey sweatshirt with pale purple raglan sleeves, cut for a man between 5'9" and 6'1". 130 manufactured for the entire country. 10 of them sold in Tokyo across 4 shops. Slasinger shoes made in Korea, a men's 9.5. 4,530 pairs. A grey knitted hat with black stripes. 3,465 sold through the same 4 Tokyo shops that stock the sweatshirt. A waist bag with a 33-inch belt. 2,850 manufactured in Osaka. His blood, type A. His genetic profile. His hair, some of it a 1/16 of an inch long, off a recent cut. More than a dozen fingerprints, all of them the spiral type, including a thumbprint investigators describe as having 2 lines at the center, like a pig's nose. 3 different fluorescent powders on the shoes and the bag. Bird droppings inside a pocket, and leaf traces from a willow and a zelkova, which is the elm they plant along Japanese streets. A detergent component that dissolves in hard water and is barely distributed in Japan because Japanese water is soft. And quartz sand in the bag, read first as Nevada desert and afterwards as more probably Californian. From the southwestern Mojave. About 280,000 investigator days, more than 16,000 pieces of information from the public, over 12,500 items of evidence, more than 5 million fingerprints compared, and something like 1.3 million genetic comparisons. No match, no record, no name. The old limitation period would have expired at the end of December 2015. On the 27th of April 2010, Japan abolished it for killings that carry the death penalty and applied that to every case whose clock had not yet run out. This one had 5 years and 8 months remaining. There is no deadline now, and there never will be again. The reward is 20 million yen. Here's what I came away with. We imagine an unsolved case as an absence, something nobody wrote down, or wrote down and lost. Every case in this video is the opposite. The Coast Guard counted the boats. The municipality paid for the cremations and printed the notices. The bank's insurers settled to the yen. The forestry agency photographed a distress signal from 12,000 feet, on schedule, and filed it. The Metropolitan Police can tell you which 4 shops sold that hat. The record is not missing. The record is immaculate. That is the thing I keep turning over. And what that demonstrates in the end is that a record is not an answer. Evidence does not accuse anybody. It sits in a box, being true, waiting for somebody to walk past and understand what they are looking at. That is where we're going to leave it for today. Every story in this video was researched and written by me, without AI. If you want the next descent, subscribe. There are more icebergs below this one, and I will see you down there. One last thing, and it is the one I actually look for. Tell me where in the world you're listening from. I never get over how far these stories travel.